Hey Eric, really glad to have you here. I'm thankful that you were able to take out the time and chat through this. So really excited to have you. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Very good. It's we're 1 week from like Christmas, so actually like excited and also, reflecting on things. It's end of year. So yeah, thanks for having me for this.
Yeah, amazing. I'm glad. And you said you were back in your home country now. Do you celebrate Christmas?
Yeah, I'm in the Czech Republic, so it's like quite cold. It's -1 degrees. I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit,
No,
but
actually, we
it's
do
very
Celsius in
cold.
Canada too, so I know.
Okay. So -1, well, it's not as cold as in Canada, but still you're kind of frozen when you go outside.
Yeah, it is pretty cold. I mean, anything in negative is cool. But no, it's good that you were able to be back with your family and enjoy Christmas and also, taking out this time. So without further ado, I would just kind of give the audience a little bit of an intro of who you are, what you've done.
Mhm.
So Evic here has been in the social media space for the past 6 years, and she works with a social media management company and manages their social media profile locally for the market and also global social media accounts. So she's kind of in the weeds. And like when you're working for a social media company, you are aware of everything that's happening and you have to be on top of the trend. So she is the right person to talk about anything social media. Really glad to have you here. And Eric, I would love for you to just give a little bit of your own bio and background and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So as you correctly said, I've been working for this social media management company for over a year and a half now. I manage their global and French social media accounts. So there's this focus on two different separate markets, doing localization for each market as well, because you can't just do a translation, but you also need to localize for the specific cultures. But my journey actually, I feel like that's common for quite a lot of people in marketing, is that my studies, haven't hasn't started in marketing. Actually, I did something else for, study, and then I pivoted at some point in my career to marketing because I find the field super interesting. There's so much happening, as you said, especially within social media. Um, you need to be on top of so many different things, the updates, algorithm changes, each, platform, social media platform would change, trends, culture, so everything in one. And I found it really exciting. And it's why I decided to pivot from actually visual arts to marketing. What else could I say? I think I've been always interested in like creative side of things, and marketing gives me this kind of door to explore that fully while also being like strategic and analytical about the creative decisions that will be made.
Wow, love that. I mean, transition from visual arts to marketing is a little bit unheard of, but like obviously you were on the visual side, so I think it kind of made sense. But what was kind of that tipping point where you were like, oh, like this is what you like? I mean, did you have some sort of like an internship that made you feel this way, or like you had some friends you talked to, and like how did that happen?
Well, actually, in my studies, so visual arts, so basically very focused on museology and then arts administration. So I had some, classes here and there about marketing. So, and I found that every time I had that class, I was like, oh, this it's really interesting. I really like that. And I guess the tipping point for me was that once I graduated with my master's from arts administration, I worked in blue chip art galleries, and it was in more operational side of things, sales. And I realized that I was doing a lot of, that admin work. And the reason number one that I wanted to work in the art world was to be able to do creative things. And that was a tipping point when I was like, but actually I'm in a creative like art field, but I'm not
Yeah.
being creative. So what's the another field that I could do that also, mixes this passion for, creativity, but also that my sense of like operational, like organizational skills. And that was when I thought, okay, I think that's marketing. And then, I started looking for jobs. So back then I lived in London, and I was quite lucky because at that time there was this art startup that just, it launched like 2 months before I joined them, and it
Mhm.
was for a entry level marketing role, and it was also in SaaS. And basically I was able to do that transition because that startup was specialized in the platform that would allow collectors to manage their art collection. And
Oh,
because I
that's
used to work in art gallery, we used to use, many of those like platforms to manage those collections. So that basically that was kind of my that link that could, brought me to the other side. And then from then I was just, learning on the ground, and ever since it's been, like this.
It's an upward trajectory. No, that's amazing. And it's great that you were able to find that. I mean, given in the field, because yeah, it's very important for the people who are doing the art to be able to showcase that. And like social media is
Mm,
now kind of taking the space where like, you have to be there to be able to be seen. People
yeah.
don't kind of walk in those, like I would say like museums or like art collection places just by themselves. Like you have to create the awareness. So
Mm,
it's just all the work that goes behind it before the art is like, being seen actually.
exactly.
Yeah, you were at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of luck and also, searching a lot, thinking a lot also, because there's also a risk, because I didn't do any formal training in marketing. So I did some
Mhm.
like online courses, online short courses because I wanted to get prep, but not, as I did before with the arts sector, like bachelor and a master. So I thought, okay, I need to do everything I could in a quite a short span of time to get that transition and get that going. And I think, the beauty of also working in digital marketing is that I think it has allowed a lot of people that were in the same situation as me to be able to learn quickly.
Mm.
Because if you're really invested and if you're really willing to learn, then, it will skyrocket for yourself, like the whole career basically.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta be a sponge to almost absorb everything that's
Mm,
happening and, replicate that as soon as possible and then be able to see the results because marketing, as you said, is so evolving. You have to see what's working, what's not, and then be able to quickly pivot. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of this space and also like the tough part, I would say, which,
it
people
is.
can sometimes like struggle with. So when you started like learning about the new system and like, how marketing is to be done, could you talk a little bit about how that experience was and like what were the challenges that you faced when you just started getting into marketing and maybe potentially like ways that you were able to overcome them and like what helped in that time? Like, were you able to like lean on someone and use their information to help yourself out? Were you like reading online to understand what's going on in the space? Like any sort of like information or like, resource that helped you along that journey?
Well, as I mentioned, the prep for it was like online short courses. So that was I think 5 to 6 years ago. So I think today you have even more courses, of course, and a lot of things on YouTube that you can watch. But I think the pivotal thing was like actually doing the job, and because it was a startup, it was like about 2 months old, there was a lot of like things that I had to, put foundations on and do. So basically I learned as I went, and back then in the startup we would say that we are building a plane and trying to fly at the same time. So it was quite intense,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's the best way, to learn because the startup would also employ a digital agency to do all the social ads and Google, search ads. So, and I was like the point of contact. So I was trying to also learn from them. So learning from everybody around me, basically, and just doing, learning as I went. I think that's the best thing because anyway, of course, there are, marketing principles that you learn at school, but because today everything changes so quickly, I feel like something that was valid yesterday is no longer valid today, so I don't know, people would say, okay, last year, the metric on social media could have been engagement that is important, but today, on LinkedIn, it's something else, maybe. So it's evolving. So you have to be there, on the ground to learn, I would say. And I feel like back then I didn't really think of reaching out to, people in community because I think I was also very young and shy. But if I could go back in time, I'd definitely try to, I don't know, contact somebody on people on LinkedIn and just have like short coffee chats with them, have prepared questions, with senior people within the same kind of sector or specialization of marketing that I used to do, so that I could, have that more like gradual and gentle approach than just being thrown basically into the field.
Yeah, no, that's a really thoughtful answer because yeah, a lot of people like when they're just graduating, they feel this disconnect with like the people who are working and they feel like, they're almost so junior that they
Mm,
can't reach out to them. And like I think like when you take off that barrier that, it's just a human, like it's just
Yeah.
they can have more knowledge, but you're gonna get there too. So you have that conversation and kind of helps. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to like dive a little bit more into the personality types, or like what kind of personalities really thrive in marketing, because you said like you were creative, you were able to like learn. So I think those things kind of go into the personality. But if you could just share a little bit about what those personality like traits look like that help you thrive in this role, and what would be the traits that actually don't help in this role.
I feel like what really is key to all of, the roles in digital marketing right now, and you see, people succeed in is really being curious, because you
Mhm.
cannot think that you know everything and then you reach the point that, you can master everything, because their field, everything is changing and evolving. So having that curiosity to learn. Right now, we're seeing the situation with AI. There are so many things, so many different tools and ways to use AI or not as well. So, having that mindset of, okay, I'm curious, I want to know more, I want to learn, and having that, yeah, basically thirst for knowing more is super important. I think within social media specifically, that character traits is also like being able to talk to and communicate with like, other people, so from different departments, because at the end, social media or marketing in general is at the intersection of so many like different teams for customer service, sales, product, depends on your company, but it's at the intersection of so many, different teams. Being able to to liaise with those people and build trust is super important. And I think especially when you start out at in the field and you're just, you've graduated and maybe you are an introverted person, that can be hard, because I used to be an introverted person. And again, by just doing, by
I
being
can see
forced
that.
to do it, you kind of do it. And sometimes I still do have that introverted kind of side of me that's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to, but I'll do it because I know that, the result will be great, and it will be better for me to, collaborate with people than just, being in my silo and just sitting in my corner and doing my own thing. Because at the end, social media at the same time is being, well, social. So if you're not being social, then it's a huge
Yeah,
problem, right?
that's literally in the name. But like,
And
how
I
did you move
think
from like being?
sorry.
Yeah, I was just curious actually. How did you end up being from an introverted person to more of a social person? Like, did you have to like push yourself a lot? I mean, for someone who is introverted right now, what recommendations would you give?
Well, I think what really helped for me was that, so I was born in Czech Republic and I grew up and, I did my high school in the Czech Republic. And then for university, I moved abroad. And that was the point when I had to be more extroverted, and that helped. And just, I know it can be quite intimidating. You could quite feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I feel like I would make myself like, feel like a fool. But then, because you do it, because you put yourself in that environment and in that conditions, then, you basically have no choice. So basically
Mhm.
I didn't leave myself any choice than just doing it. And then it has gradually become more and more, more comfortable for me. So that kind of, I could say, like stepping outside of your comfort zone, basically.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. Now, kind of like shifting gears a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about your actual role and kind of like the day to day. So, would love to hear kind of like what goes around in a typical day or even a week, just so that, the audience can get a better view of what you do in your role. And like, even if you could touch a little bit about the metrics that you see. And as you mentioned, like they kind of change, but what's kind of the goal that you are probably working on right now with your current role? And like what metrics are those, and kind of like how it all looks in a weekly kind of schedule.
Yeah, sure. So in a weekly schedule, there is a lot of content planning, content
Hmm.
and content creation. And then there's a part of also insight and strategy that happens, because for you to be able to invest that time to produce content, you also need to know what previously worked well or not. Um, so, because I'm the social media manager, I also have a social media intern. So, by also creating, organizing the time for my intern, you're doing a to-do list that helps me
Yeah.
organize my time as well, because I know what I'm uploading. So most of the tasks related to content creation, the quite straightforward one, would go to my intern so that he knows exactly what he is working on, a to-do list that we check every beginning of the week, and at the end of the week we check if things have been done, and if not, what we could do next time to improve in terms of productivity, or maybe we need to remove some tasks. So that's for like that management side of things.
Mhm.
And then for my side is like really planning, being able to plan ahead so that once, a campaign happens, you already have that content line up. So you're
Yeah.
not, in that kind of last moment crisis trying to create a pull together content. Sometimes it happens because, in the world of social media, there can be, real life events that happen. So you have to adapt. But if you have around like 80% of your content already planned and you know exactly what you create and how much time you're going to attribute to that content creation, that it makes everything much more easier. So you're more proactive, 80%, and then 20% is more dedicated to that, reactiveness. Okay, something happens in the society and, it's the moment for your brand to, speak up on social media, then you have that time to, reflect on things and act immediately. And as I said, also, every week I would do weekly like top down report on how the previous week performed. So I would like look at like the number of followers, engagement, reach, and also number of click-throughs that were generated from the social media posts to our website. Because as a top of funnel, social media, is there to kind of educate and inform people, get that brand awareness, get that attention, and then by showing that we are ushering people from social media to the company's website.
Yeah.
There's that impact of social media basically on the business. We're trying to bring people to the website, but of course it depends on your objectives. For me right now it is about engagement and that conversion basically.
Interesting. So a lot of people just the ones that are coming to your website through the social media posts that you're putting out, so just tracking that through the
Hmm.
Google tracking analytics and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And through the tool that we have, because the company that I work at is the social media management tool, so we have
Yeah.
that analytics built in, which make things so much easier, especially if you're not a Google Analytic fan. But yeah, it's a lot about insight from the past and trying to see what you can do in the future, basically. If I take it
Yeah.
really like holistically.
Definitely. No, that was a beautiful answer. Thanks for like the detail in like whatever you do and how you planned out. So just to kind of recap, you would say like 70% of your time is content generation and like planning around it and like managing people. And then you said the rest 20-30% is kind of like more of the reactive of like how to engage with like things that are happening and certain trends that might pick up or wherever like your company like has to proactively engage. So like even in the comment section of someone who's probably
Mm.
have social media troubles and like you kind of go in there. So if you were to like do a percentage split of that quickly, like I mean, what would you say? Because I just kind of like did based off like something that I've just learned from you right now. But I think
Oh, I
you.
would say so. I would say like on a weekly basis, it's like 10% reporting. So looking back to what worked last
Mhm.
week, 20% that inbox and community engagement. So inbox management and community engagement. And, the 70% is content, but like big content meaning like planning, devising,
Mhm.
managing, some pieces of content I wouldn't be the one that's creating them. It would be the intern, but still I have to, approve the content, make sure that everything is on brand, the tone of voice is correct. We're also in the content category, I'm also counting in like if we are filming with colleagues, like organizing that time, making sure that they are aware of what's happening, why we're filming a video, if there is a script, and really setting the ground for that video filming session, for example, to be very successful.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's a lot of work that is involved, and especially like, this is just kind of a small, like condensed version of it. But like whatever you do on like the back end is a lot more. So no, that's amazing. In terms of like this role specifically as a social media manager, what would you say success looks like for anyone who's trying to like get in the space and like wants to just start working on those things? What are you really measured on? And I know that would be like dependent on the company and what they're trying to achieve, but just kind of more of a overall holistic view of like what the companies usually strive for these days. If like let's say you're a new social media manager coming in.
Yeah, I think it's super important to, as soon as you arrive in the company, to understand what the objectives and the priorities are from the company. As you mentioned, different companies would have different objectives. So let's say in the manufacturing sector or automotive sector, if you're in a company that sells cars, well, your objective won't be like sell a car through social media because that probability is very low. So of
Mhm.
course it would be more about, engagement, inquiries, for example. But for me, as I already mentioned, the success looks like that we are engaging with the right people, with our target audience, and the fact that, there is traffic coming from social media to the website, and then, once they land on the website, they continue that customer journey, which is measured in Google Analytics. And I think really, aligning as soon as possible, with the business goals and how your social media strategy and then everything that goes from that, how that um like how that kind of helps, reaching those business goals in high level. Because a lot of times we see a lot of disconnect between, the business goals and then social media just doing their own
Mhm.
thing in the corner. And then the senior leadership having those questions about what is social media even doing,
Yeah.
and there are of course like exceptions. I'll name the most obvious one, like Duolingo, for example, where the success is so big, then social media might not be that questioned. But in
Mhm.
other companies where it's where your account hasn't went viral, you really constantly need to prove that, okay, everything that we're doing is contributing to those objectives, to those goals.
Amazing. So it sounds like just as soon as you come into a company, understand the goals, the priorities, and then start like seeing how that could be fulfilled through the social media channels that you have. Amazing.
Exactly, because then, the way how you do it, the content strategy, the content format, okay,
Mhm.
that will align later, but you need to first know which direction you're going to,
Right.
because it's like you need to know where you're going and then how you get there, if it's by train, by bike, by car,
Mhm.
that's later. Because if you don't know, okay, I'm going to pick up this car and I'm just going, but you don't know where
Yeah.
you're going.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're gonna find yourself someplace that you were not supposed to go.
Exactly, and you wasted all this effort to, to go to this destination that you thought you might have thought that is the final destination, but it isn't for the company. So alignment is very, very important, yeah. So that's why, like, as soon as you get in those conversations with, the key players that will be important for your strategy. And sometimes, it goes back to the fact of being social, talking to the teams, to the departments that really, matter. In every company, it will be different, For some, we might be working a lot with the customer success team because then, a lot of inquiries or the complaints would go through social media, for example. So
Mhm.
social media is one of the first touch points. So, customer success would be one of your number one, teams to align with, to partner with. For others, it would be sales. For others, it would be maybe products. Really understand how your company works and who are your, allies from the early stages.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I'm guessing like that also involves like you just making introductions and trying to talk to them early on, like within your like first 90 days, like you're having a good
Mm,
relationship with them and making sure that you do everything possible to like have that relationship set up on a good note. Because oftentimes what happens, like if you're kind of in your own bubble and you're thinking that, okay, you have to do your onboarding steps, set up
mm,
like, your Gmail, and like you got to set up like other like your email sections and, your Slack profile, like which are the small things. But you kind of like start doing that and like you kind of meet your own team, but then like also just meeting the team that is like beyond the marketing department itself, the ones that you'll be collaborating with, and like having that
mm.
is like really important. Amazing. In terms of like your own experience, what is the most rewarding part of your job? And also on the flip side, like what's kind of the most frustrating part, if any?
I think the most rewarding part is, when you create a strategy or a piece of content and it really hits home. And, people are
Mhm.
like, yes, like this is, and you know it because people comment, under it, oh, this is me, or, they identify themselves with.
Yeah.
That's the spike of adrenaline when you're like, yes, yes, that's it. And then on the flip side, is that, sometimes you might have a theory of, okay, this is going to work. You spend so much time on a piece of content or a campaign, and then it doesn't, and you don't sometimes you don't have all the explanations for why it worked, so that quite common, I would say, like, joke in social media is like, okay, a post that you spend 2 minutes doing goes viral, and then another one where you spend like 2 hours and it just barely got like 50 views. So,
Yeah.
that like kind of unpredictability can be sometimes frustrating because, yeah, you might think, okay, this is the best, or somebody else, from the team would say, okay, we need to do this like this, but then it doesn't work. So ultimately, it just goes back to, the data also with how well you know your audience.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about you, or it's not about, your manager, what they want, what you want, but it's about your audience because they
Yeah.
ultimately decide if your content was a success or not.
Yeah, no, that is super intriguing. Yeah, it's a little bit challenging when a lot of like your success is kind of driven by external like output, and like so many different people that you're engaging with. So you're almost predicting what they would like
Mm.
in advance. And like you mentioned that like the kind of the joke of like 2 minutes work leads to like the viral hits and all that. And I have a follow up on that. What do you feel is an ideal time to spend on like a post or an idea? Is any like, I mean, beyond which a person should not probably go, like, if you put in too much time, the results start to kind of diminish because
Mm.
you have like spent so much, and then the ROI on it would probably not be as good as you expected. So is there like kind of like a healthy boundary of that, or it's kind of like depends on situation to situation?
I think it depends on situations, of course. Sometimes you would have quite a complex piece of content that you would have to work through, but I think that maybe that limit of like 3 hours, especially, well, when
Mm.
we talk about an example of short form videos or video content in general, if it's taking over 3 hours to, did everything, I would say that's too much because also today on social media, video content, there's such a low entry level barrier to kind of create content as well. And people want more of that authentic content. So not really polished content, but it has to
Mhm.
be, something that people can relate to. So that also removes that pressure of a content being perfect. Of course,
Yeah.
again, it depends on also your brand. Maybe you are, working in luxury and you cannot, have blurry or grainy videos being
Mm.
used. But I would say that, social media, it happens, it moves so fast and you have to move fast with it. So I think, it's to test and try. So if you see that a video where you spent, 3 hours last time didn't work, you also analyze, was the hook right? Was the tagline right? How could I change the script? Was it too long? There's a lot of things that you
Mhm.
have to analyze. You should analyze as well so that you have those learnings to take for next time. And every time you're getting faster and more efficient in it and better at it as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done your own like A/B testing and kind of like learned from like the whole process of like, seeing all this data and everything, which is great
Mhm.
because it takes time and you've been in this for almost half a decade now, right? If not more. So that is amazing. And for someone who is like new in this field, like what kind of mistakes do you see them make when they are like, let's say making content or, maybe engaging? Like what are those like common things that if you were to think about acts as like a barrier of like someone thinking that this might be the thing, but it's not to like,
I would say, because everybody has, a social media account, everybody can just scroll. I would say that it's so easy to fall in this rabbit hole of trends because of course, like, we all have an Instagram account, TikTok account, whatever, and we all, are exposed to those trends, to those trending audios and so on. So I think, one of those like weaknesses that I've done it in the past as well when I started is that, oh, you really wanted to do this trend, but you don't know, why we are doing it. What is the
Mhm.
objective? It is, if you do
Interesting.
this video, if you follow this trend, will it actually get you closer to the objective, that you set for yourself for this campaign or whatever? So it's like, don't chase just trends, but actually have the bigger vision of like, okay, is this piece of content getting me closer and closer to the objective?
Mm.
Why would it work? And sometimes you just have to test it, to know, which is
Yeah.
fine. But constantly just chasing those trends is not great because today also when you scroll on social media, or at least when I scroll, I see that different brands like a restaurant, a library, company that sells cars would all do the same trend. And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, so there's no originality in social anymore because people are just chasing those trends, you
Yeah.
know?
Have you seen that video that is someone's walking on the street and they just like throw their coffee on the car that is passing, and then the person comes and starts talking, and then it's just a way to like be like, oh, like this coffee's from like this cafe, and like
Ah,
just
yeah.
yeah, it's just, it's like a hook, like used because it's like kind of like a little bit of a rage bait. Because when we see any sort of content on social media, like the hook or like the attention grabber is
Mm,
sometimes something that is like off-putting or like something unusual, and a lot of time people kind of like get hooked or like just have that like a little bit of a I would say higher attention to something that just is kind of happens out of the blue, and they're like, okay, what's gonna happen next? You know?
mm,
And then the next thing is just the promotion of it. So like, yeah, there's like I've seen like real estate agents do that. I've seen like restaurants do that. Yeah, like it's different for anyone who's like picked it up. But yeah, I feel like everyone starts to like go off that trend. Like they see something going viral and they're like, okay, I want to be on this. And you're so right that you can't always be doing this, because like sometimes it ends up being a meme, like account almost, that you're like
exactly.
doing that.
Exactly. And like talking about those viral videos, at the viral points of like, spilling that coffee. And the thing is like you can tell in your reporting of, that video when was the dropout time, what was
Mm,
the amount of time that people stay to watch that video. And if it's just, the first like, 10% of the video, well, that you know that people actually just watch your video for that viral moment, but then they quit the video and that video
yeah.
didn't have any impact for your company.
Yeah, no, interesting. It's always like such an evolving thing, but I feel like the more you're aligned to the vision and what the company wants, and like seeing if this trend aligns with that, then basically moving forward with it. It's like kind of the recap, I think, what I understood from you saying.
Mm.
The next thing I just want to understand is like for anyone who is, getting into this role, let's say they've got a social media job, they're starting off tomorrow. Would be the recommendation for their first like 90 days? What should they be focusing on? And part of it we've already talked about, but if you have any sort of like a structure of like, okay, by day 30, like they should be at this point and like so on and so forth. Yeah, if you could just share that a little bit for people who are, growing and just getting started, would be really good.
Yeah, sure. So as we mentioned already, like meeting the people that you will work with inside of your team and outside of the team, I think the first 2 weeks should be dedicated to this. So you also understand what other departments do and also
Mhm.
identify in the future what you might need from them, in the
Yeah.
future. It might not be right now, but, people might mention that they are working on something and then you take a note of it and then maybe, oh, in 2 months' time, actually this person mentioned this and because I talked to him and her, to them, then, I can go back because I already established this relationship. So I think, getting to know those people. Also, as you mentioned, fully understand the business goals, how you are contributing to the funnel, and actually doing all the research you need to start building that social media strategy. And also, I think, because the social media strategy is such a huge document, it can feel quite scary to kind of just ship, to work on
Mhm.
everything and then just give it to, your manager or whoever is reviewing it, on one thing. So maybe just, I would recommend just chopping it up into 2 to 3 different like pieces. So first the objective, then, the part with competitors, and the part with, actually the strategy, how you want to get to the objectives, and each time, get it already like checked, like proof by, approved by your manager. So you're continuously like building and you're not just working in a big blog on something that might not be approved in the end. So you have that, checking basically that alignment that what you're doing from the beginning is always aligned. And if there needs to be some changes made, then, it's better for it to be at the beginning, of those 19 days than, at the 80. Oh no, actually, the main kind of way that I want to reach this objective, well, is wrong or like it doesn't
Mhm.
align with the company's vision and I have to redo everything and I just lost, those weeks on just working on something that wasn't aligned.
Yeah, sounds like learn quickly and fail quickly, and then you'll be good to go. Along with
Yeah, and of course, like, there is a lot of pressure for people to kind of get things quickly, but sometimes you also need to have that time to kind of absorb things.
Mm,
understand how things work and have that kind of distance from playing and see, okay, now that I have everything, how can I holistically, look at everything that I have, all the components, and really, start, making those strategic decisions or suggestions, because when often we're too close in French, they would say that your nose is too close to your bike, like to the gear, so that you don't see where you're heading. You're just, so focused on your gears, it's kind of
so-
that thing. And sometimes that can be kind of challenging in social media because you're in this like kind of wheel of like, okay, updates, and then you have to do content and you have to plan, and it's all happening at the same time, all the time, nonstop. Just having that moment also to breathe and just think, okay, assess things
yeah,
and know,
absolutely.
like if the direction where you're going is still okay or if it needs to be changed.
Nice. Now that is actually really, really good answer. And I feel like, yeah, like people just have to line themselves really good and like be able to also have like a bigger vision almost at the same time when they're like also being very like
Mm,
intricate and like narrow with like what the branding and the tone of the whole brand is and like learning that, but also kind of keeping that outside vision of like what's happening, almost like kind of seeing yourself an external point of view and seeing like, okay, what are you doing? Kind of get
exactly,
out of the box and
exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
And that can be really hard because when you are, in the job doing it like, on the ground running, it's really hard to get that, eyebird view on the situation sometimes.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. So people got to be more self-aware, I guess. No, amazing. And in terms of like career advice that you like, probably wish that you knew about before you started off this journey, what would you have to say or share with the people like who, are probably in the stage that would love an advice from someone who has been in the space for so long?
I think just, start connecting with people on LinkedIn, in marketing and social media, get their opinion as well. If you feel like there is a specific sector that you would like to work in, but you're not sure yet, just get those feedbacks from people that are already in that space. Or maybe if
Mhm.
you're just fresh out of school, I think if you have access to alumni lists and see where they're working, that might be
Mm.
easier at first to
Yeah.
reach out to that alumni who's been like 1 to 2 years in a job, and you have that common thing that you went to the same school. There might be still like kind of like in the same kind of age, a similar age as you. So it as a first step, it might feel less intimidating than just going to like direct or social speaking right away. So you kind of do those steps little by little and see, if you really feel like that could be, the sector or the role that you want. Because in marketing, there is so many different roles. So social media is just one of them. And maybe at the beginning you thought, oh, I want to be in social media, but actually it will be in CRM or, something else, but still
Mm.
in that marketing field.
Yeah, no, that's a good advice. I actually did the same thing when I was looking for my first role out of my grad school.
Mm.
And you're right, like about reaching out to alumni, I think it's so underrated.
Mm.
Like you gotta be able to find those people. I mean, there are lists. Sometimes you can just ask your own university to provide that, or like if you have a LinkedIn, I think like it has to be a paid plan, but you are able to like just filter out people based off the university that they've gone to. And then you are able to see like, okay, who's been there. So yeah, almost works out like that. Because I know like sometimes for people it's very intimidating and like just seeing that, okay, well, like what value do I have to give to this person that I'm talking to? And sometimes you feel like, well, like I'm just kind of like taking from people and like I don't have much to give. Do you have any sort of like recommendation for those people to like change their mindset or even like, let's say, start doing something on LinkedIn that makes them more engaging, that the person wants to like have a conversation, like things like that?
Yeah, sure. Like, completely understand when you say like, that you in the position of a junior person, like, okay, what do I have to kind of in exchange to give this person? I think like, you never know in future with whom you will work, and you might
Mm,
be speaking to your next employer. So basically, you might be actually very useful to them as well in long term. So that's one thing. I think people need to kind of go back to the basics and think also that every one of us started as a junior. Nobody just was born, a director. But some
mm,
people tend to forget that, especially, when they are in senior positions. That, but if you just message people, the worst they can say is no. Sorry, I forgot your second question.
Oh, it
I
was
think there
just
was a
around
second
like
part of
whether
it.
they should engage on like LinkedIn or like kind
Oh
of
yeah,
put it.
yeah, sure. So, what is great today is that basically anyone can create an Instagram account or LinkedIn account to
Mm,
showcase, their knowledge or their work. You don't have to, have like work to a brand to post on social media, A lot of today famous marketing creators found a job or
mm,
found are in the like senior positions because they started out as just, posting content on Instagram, LinkedIn, and building um, that reputation from themselves, so basically thought leadership. And then, people would then come to seek them, because they showcase already that they have those skills. Basically, they gave the proof of, okay, I'm not just looking for a job. Here is what I can do, and here is the value that I can provide to your company. So
absolutely.
I think really, that is really good versus like if, 20 years ago, maybe, it was really hard, social media just, didn't like was at very in
Yeah.
its
You wouldn't even
infancy.
know what
So
that was.
yeah.
What is social media?
So really like it's today I think the entry like the level to like the barrier to get into it, it really depends on you and what you want to do and what you can
Mm,
do. So if you feel like, okay, I feel comfortable maybe sharing my perspective on a marketing campaign that happened. So example one that is there are a lot of debates about it on in the social media slash marketing space is the Pantone's color of the year,
mm.
white
Is it
color.
Cloud Dancer, right?
Yeah, cloud answered. So there are a
Okay.
lot of discussions about it, Is this a good campaign? Is it not? So maybe you can give your perspective on that, or, there's so many things happening on the digital in the digital space, and you can there is a lot of like ways for you to give your opinion and also start doing that educational content, basically,
Mm.
to prove that you are already, doing things and you're not just looking for things, basically looking for that job. So basically, you're building your own portfolio.
Yeah, and I feel like it also goes beyond to like just even like let's say you are interested in a hobby, right? Like I mean, if you like love cooking and you can kind of start off your own like platform there and like do that. Obviously, it's gonna be more on personal level, but at least like when you have that conversation with an employer, you can showcase that and tell that okay, like this is kind of what I've been
Exactly.
working on. This is my own personal project. Let's say you're not getting an internship or like all that. Although I do feel like if you do get an internship and sometimes like they don't really pay well, so even if you have to go for it, I would say just kind of build it out, especially when you're in a university, like that can help. A little bit later in life, it is definitely challenging to like be doing those things when you actually want
Mm,
real money, I would just say, and do all that. So yeah, I feel like there's different ways. It's just being creative. I think like at the end of it, how do you really do that? And like
exactly.
actually, your suggestion is amazing because like so many companies are doing their own like recaps, or you can just do like on a campaign. Like for example, American Eagle did like Sydney Sweeney's campaign of like
Yeah.
how it worked out, and like they have like really blown it off with like their retail sales in the last quarter just because of that campaign. So it's like definitely surpassed like whatever they invested and. They've got so much back. So even like just doing a recap of that campaign and just seeing what's happening in the global trends, picking on a trend and then just doing a recap of it kind of makes you as a thought leader, as you said. So that's actually a really good advice because it makes your LinkedIn look better. It makes you look more knowledgeable. And then it also helps
Exactly.
you connect with the new person that you're reaching out to because they see some activity on your, social like LinkedIn. Because oftentimes it's just like
Yeah.
universities and like, this what it is and like you have zero work experience and then the person's like should I be connecting with this person, like what's this person really doing, is he serious, and like they don't even have let's say 500 connections because after 500 it's almost like nice. So what was told to me actually back in my day was that at least hit that 500 mark, obviously do it intentionally but keep doing it like till you get there.
Yeah.
It's almost like practice because when you see someone's profile with like 46 connections, you're like almost that okay, is this real? A
Yeah. And
person
some people are just not active on there, but I feel like so especially if you work in marketing, your
yeah.
CV is a marketing material. How you present yourself, will show your communication skills. So there's a lot yeah, a lot of opportunities, I would say, that people can seize. And also because the market is so competitive and so saturated, I always think about, okay, so what could I do to differentiate myself from, another person? Let's say, okay, you have a master's degree. Okay, so how could
Mm,
I really differentiate myself from that person that has the same master, like imagine a lot of master's degrees would have like 30 graduates within the same field. Okay, what are you doing to, because you both have that degree, but what will
Mhm.
differentiate you will actually be everything you do outside of that, around of your degree. So, as you said, like doing that analysis, the summary of different trends, really showcases your skills already, puts them in practice, and people could actually, okay, see, okay, so this person really is doing that effort, is going that extra mile, and I want this person, in the company because I know that they will do the same for the brand or even better, and they have already proved themselves before even they started working for the
Mm.
company.
No, definitely agree. That is actually spot on. And I feel like you've been so great with like sharing like whatever's like happening in this space and like, whatever you have done. So this has been all like really good advice. So really appreciate you for that.
Yeah,
I
of
guess
course,
that's just
always happy to share. Sometimes I talk too much, so just feel free to stop me.
No, no, definitely. Like people want to hear. Like I feel people like want to have that education, and like sometimes as we talked about, like it's difficult to connect over that LinkedIn. Even these, I would say, interviews help people just get that perspective, without being able to connect. Although I would still highly recommend anyone to like just go have direct conversation because that's how you grow. But even like, the purpose of this like channel and like the content here is that people can have that kind of insights, and then even if they're
Mm,
having a tough time like finding those people to connect to, they can at least start working on some things and get to a point where they can actually start connecting, because sometimes you just got to level up a little bit, like be it in any way that you're doing. Like it's just how do you really stand out, as you said, and as you keep like pushing that, like there are ways that things kind of work out. It
mm.
sometimes just needs a little bit of a push in the start. Kind of have to like get the ignition on and get the car running before you start driving on the road. It's like that.
Yes, and it's the beginning that is the most like, difficult, most challenging because once you're running, like going back to that bike metaphor, like, jumping on the bike is the most like daunting because I'll fall, I don't know. But
Mhm.
once you're on the bike, it just rolls and you have to keep rolling because once you stop, then you'll fall. So
Yeah.
it's just keep it
Well, that
rolling.
just keep rolling. That is the advice. I mean, this is kind of like something that connects into the last question that I do have for you. Is like, if you could leave the viewers with one line to remember, what would it be? I think like you actually said a really good line, but would you want to stick to that, or would you want to say any other like one last line for someone who's watching?
Yeah, I would say just, be ready to be outside of your comfort zone and, be curious about it and everything will be all right. There will be challenges, there will be times that it will be tiring, but I think really the key is always being curious and wanting to learn more will always get you far.
Amazing, amazing. No, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah,
amazing.
thank you for great questions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure that, we are able to get the most of this time. And also, like, you're such a busy person. So, being able to, like, get everything that we can over this call. And I feel like you were just simply incredible. So, I appreciate you
No,
for
thank you so
giving the
much.
examples and, like, everything else. But it was a pleasure.
Likewise, I hope it will, help people to get into the industry and they can always connect with me on LinkedIn as well if they have any questions.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll probably link that up in the description, so that they can
Mhm.
reach out to you and then connect. Yeah, Evik is here to like chat with you guys. So feel free to ping her. And yeah, this was great. Thanks, Evik.
Thank you, Karen. Bye.
Bye.